brain injury survivors, those are brain injuries, brain conditions, the disability community, the wheelchair community, stroke survivors, caregivers, medical professionals, organizations, and anyone associated with brain injuries to share their stories, plus provide tips and resources to those impacted. On today's episode, I have a game changer who's shaking things up for people with disabilities and in the wheelchair community. He's making a difference in the world where he's located at. And he's executive director of Jake's Place, or Bill Jake's Place, I'm sorry, Bill Jake's Place, executive director for that. He's also a podcast host, Disabilities Advocate, a blogger, entrepreneur of his own brand, OurView, and so much more. Let's welcome Arthur Aston. Welcome, Arthur.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation today.
Yes. Did I cover everything? Did I get it all?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome. So how's it going out there in New Jersey, right? New Jersey?
Yes, New Jersey. It's going well. It's we never know how to dress this time of year. It's cold sometimes at night, and then it's supposed to be close to 80 degrees today. And as you see, I'm in a sweatshirt because it's kind of cool in my house, but we never know.
Yeah. It's funny weather. So I saw you officiate your friend's officiate at your best friend's wedding. How cool was that? That was so amazing.
Yes. Yeah, so that was just yesterday. It was my best friend that I've known since we were 14 in like ninth grade. She got married yesterday, and her fiance, they asked me to officiate their wedding. So it was my first time, and it was really fun. It was really fun, really nerve-wracking.
You're also an officiate. So if you can
Yes. Yes. So that was my first time. I don't know, I don't know where it'll go from there, but now that people put it out there on social media, I don't know. I might get a lot of requests.
You might. You never know. So thank you for being here. But I want you to start by introducing yourself and then share with us your Spina Bifida journey.
Okay, so I am Arthur Aston. As you mentioned, I'm a lifelong resident of New Jersey. I was born and raised here, and I was born with spina bifida, which simply means I had a hole in my back when I was born, and it impacted my mobility. So the hole that I had was at the lower part of my back, and some of the nerves and parts of my spinal cord were actually showing on the outside of my body when I was born. So I had the hole closed when I was 2 days old, and it didn't. It did some damage because I can't feel below my knees. I can't wiggle my toes or move my feet at all. I have to walk with leg braces and crutches. I have to use a wheelchair for long distances, and so that's primarily how it has impacted my life. That was surprisingly 40 years ago that I was born. So, which is something I've said, and I'm sure people who have listened to my podcast are tired of me talking about it. But I always like to mention it because I wasn't expected to live past the age of 15. So to be 40 years old coming up next month, it's something I'm very happy about and very proud to share with everybody. And living with spina bifida, it hasn't been easy, but thankfully with family and friends and just having a good network of people, that is really what that's how I get through. That's how I always tell people I get through. As I mentioned, I was with my friend yesterday. We've known each other since we were 14. Like that's a ride or die friend to the end kind of person. That's there through everything for me. And Angela is her name. So it's like we've been through the greatest times, the not so good times. And, when each of us need encouragement, when we're not having a good day, it's like, okay, like you can have your moment and like, let's get it moving now. Like we got to get through this. We'll get through it. And so just having a good network of people is definitely how I have been able to get through this journey and live a good life of, despite having a disability and what people would see as limitations.
That's wonderful. So I know I saw a picture of you standing, and so a lot of times people think when people are on wheelchairs, they think, oh, you're bound to the wheelchair, or this is, you can't do anything else. I'm like, why you stand up and everything? You're like, you stand up and everything. But of course, you say like long distances, you use wheelchair for those kind of things. Um, but you can't stand, you can't walk, you can't do those things. It's just long distances, you just need a chair for that. And so I think that some people understand that just because the person's in a wheelchair does not mean they cannot walk. So some cannot. It's true, some cannot. But you can never differentiate between a person who can walk and can't walk. So it's important to not, you know, um, stereotype it all, but it's all one category. So
Yes.
just point that out as well.
Yes, it's definitely when I do presentations for children, and even for adults as well, I do some presentations at the college level. I always say I have a part of my presentation where I call it disability etiquette, and one of my
Okay.
first things I mention is never make assumptions. So, like you said, just because you see someone in a wheelchair, don't assume that they can't walk. It's for me, it's more comfortable to sit in my wheelchair than to stand for a long time. Like you
Mhm.
saw me standing up. I took pictures with a few of my friends who were there, and then I was
Yeah.
right back in my chair.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I was able to get up. I had my crutches there. I always have them with me. But that's one of the big things I always say: don't make assumptions, because you never know what a person's situation is, and that's just the same for any other disability. If somebody can't hear, if they have hearing aids, don't
Yes.
assume that they can't see, or some other don't assume that something else is wrong with them. And I use
Yes.
that term in quotation marks. But
Definitely.
yeah,
Before you
yeah,
run.
yes. So it's just and that's the thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with anybody. It's just we live life differently, and that's that's another big thing that I love to point out as well. That we just have to do things differently. I walk differently, and I can figure out things, and if I don't know how to do something, or if I can't do something, I ask for help. Absolutely.
I'm one of the ones that needs to use a wheelchair. I can stand with assistance. I'm not at the point where you
Mhm,
are yet. We can stand
mhm.
independently by yourself, but I'm working towards that. But
Yeah.
I do remember once upon a time, I was kind of judgmental myself. I remember I used to take a ride service a few years ago, and I remember seeing the lady in the wheelchair. I think, oh, okay, she's like me, and but I saw her get up and like, I know people can get up in wheelchairs. Like, I didn't know this. So, but they can also have MS. There's so many different things that people can have that I didn't know. I didn't know anything about those things until I took the time to actually become knowledgeable about those things, like MS or like some people will need wheelchairs to deal with lupus or stuff like that. It's other diseases
Mhm.
that impact people differently. And so, because I have a friend also who has lupus, and sometimes he uses a wheelchair. He can walk, but it just like you say easier sometimes to use a wheelchair for certain things. So I'm like, well, wheelchairs are just for more than just people who cannot walk. It's people who also need help. Um, like yourself who can't go no distance and walking, whatever like that. So it makes it more manageable. I would say, I guess. So
Yes, I saw something a few weeks ago on social media where it says it was all about terminology and the use of terminology, where a lot of people say wheelchair bound instead of
mm,
wheelchair user. So,
mm.
when you say wheelchair bound, that means that, like, it's
It's not permanent.
confining, or yeah, or
Yeah, it's not.
confined to a wheelchair. But
Yeah,
and the whole point of that post was, my wheelchair allows me to do so many other things that I wouldn't be able to do. So that is so it's not a confinement. I'm not confined to my wheelchair. I'm freed by
right.
my wheelchair. It gives me a lot more mobility and access to places and things that I wouldn't
Absolutely.
be able to do using my crutches. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's a really, I love that you brought that up.
Okay, but I use a power chair,
Hmm.
and because my right arm is affected, so I'm not able to wheel myself around.
Hmm.
When I did try to go on my manual wheelchair, I go in circles. I go in circles. That's like you need both hands, to go
Right.
straight. So the power chair is easy for me to use. So that's what I use. Now
Hmm.
when I go out to my family's house that's not accessible, then I use my other chair. But most of the time, I'm going to go to accessible places where I can't get my power chair because it's easier, and I like my independence. Like I don't want to get pushed around,
Right.
I want independence. So yeah. So what was it like for you growing up with other kids?
So I'm from a very large family. My dad was one of 10 children. My mom is one of seven.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have a lot of I have a lot of cousins.
Yeah,
And
I
as
was
the
like,
saying goes, my
on
as the
both
saying
sides.
goes, yeah, yeah, my cousins were my first friends.
Yeah.
So it really, which made it easy for me
Mhm,
because everybody just accepted me, all my cousins.
mhm,
And they knew I had to do things differently. They knew that I had to, I walked slower because of my crutches. And as I
mhm.
got older, I started using a wheelchair as a teenager.
Okay.
Um, so they knew I had to get my wheelchair, or my wheelchair had to go with me if we were going to the mall or to an amusement park or something like that. And then my cousins, on the other hand, too, they also knew that I could drive as I got to be 18 years old. So for my younger cousins, that was like, oh yeah, cousin Arthur's going to drive us to the movies, or he's going to pick
Yeah.
us up. And so it was growing up with my family was great. It was the
Mhm.
I think the outside world, the world outside of my bubble, as
Yeah.
people say, who weren't familiar. And I came to realize that as I got older, it wasn't kids, they say kids can be cruel, but I think it's just a thing of where kids don't know. They literally do not know
Mhm.
about disabilities. And so that's why I feel like I was in my situation. That's why I feel like I was maybe made fun of or looked at differently or stared at, because it was different to them. They never saw a wheelchair before. They never saw crutches, and it's like, what is that? But they
Yeah.
don't know how to express it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so they make fun of it, or they laugh at it, and or they
Right.
point
Started
at
scared.
you. Yes.
Mhm.
So it's really, it was just different for them. So, and I never really was bullied, in any extreme way or anything like that, growing
Mhm.
up, because I had such great friends that I did know that I made, and who looked out for me, and they got
Sure.
their friends to know me as well. So that helped out a whole lot, and creating
Yeah.
those, mhm, and creating those branches of different friendships and things like that, that helped out a lot.
I'm glad you had that. So how did you know how to accept yourself in the when you need to use the wheelchair? How did you know how to accept it?
I pretty much accepted it pretty quickly. So I started using a wheelchair in middle school when I started ninth grade. So I went to an elementary school that was very small, 100,
Mhm.
maybe 130 kids total between preschool through sixth grade.
Mhm.
Everybody knew each other, grew up in a small town.
Mhm.
Um, our middle school for the township was a lot bigger. You had, different townships going to the one middle school. So, there maybe were maybe 800, maybe 1,000 kids in the middle school.
Mhm.
So, my parents, they were concerned about that, being like a big shock to me, going from, 100 to, almost 1,000 kids in a school. So I did go to a private school, which was kind of like, maybe 300 kids in the private school.
Mhm.
I did that for seventh and eighth grade, and then it was time for ninth grade. I said I wanted to go to the school where my sister was. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I went to our local public middle school, but just realizing my limitations, realizing my disability and walking with crutches may not be safe for me in a building where kids are rushing to get to class in
Yeah.
3 or 4 minutes. And not that they would do it on purpose, but my crutch could get kicked and I could fall. So it was just a reality of facing reality and saying, like, we think it's best if you have this manual wheelchair. And the manual wheelchair was a conscious decision made by my parents and myself, where I am able to use my arms. So they wanted to make sure that I still had that chance to get that, that movement, that workout. So
Yeah.
so we really made that decision. And I pretty much came to accept it. And it was just like, yeah, I think you're right. Because in the middle school, the floors are tile, so they can be slippery. And if there's paper on the ground, I can fall. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really, I don't think, for me, it really wasn't a question of, having to come to accept it or not. It was just like, this
You
has
just
to
need to
be
keep
done.
going. Yeah.
Yes, this has to be done for safety. And it was like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think for me, I grew up walking. For the past for 20 years, I walked around. And so
Mhm.
being in the wheelchair is like a whole new world. I mean, I'm fine with it now, but at first it was like the first 5 years, I'm like, I don't like this. I can't do this. Like, I don't want to be in. I just I try to have myself in a bubble. I went to school online because I didn't want to be seen in person in a wheelchair. Like I was just so ashamed to be seen in a wheelchair. But not even, but being on the other side of things, I see it so different. Like we're still people. We're still people, and we still got feelings. You know, you're still normal. You're still normal. We're still normal, or quote unquote normal. You know,
Yes, right.
because we're still we still bleed the same. We still have hearts. You know, we have brains. So it's like we're still people. At the end of the day, when you use a wheelchair or use your legs, whatever you use, you're still people. So I had to come to accept that first and foremost. I think for me, also knowing that um, it's okay, you know, being okay with it, and just being okay with it, you know. So that was my two biggest things that I learned from that. But yeah, it's definitely just adjustment though. I would
Mhm.
say, but yeah. So now to the other side of things, you continue your life. You have some amazing things. You're not letting no one try to stop you, or your disability stop you, whatever. You move forward. So you're the executive director of Jake's Place, Bill Jake's
Yes.
Place, Jake's Place.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So what does that entail? Tell me what that's about? Like your executive director of Jake's Place, you're entrepreneur of our brand, you're a podcast host. So you got so many things going on. You're an advocate for disabilities, you're a blogger. You know, that's one thing. Like, where do you get all this time? Where do you find the
Yes.
time? And I
Um,
mean, you're an author, but you're going to be an author. I feel like so. It's like next for you. I feel like so
yes.
you're definitely breaking the stigma of a lot of things of people who quote
Yes.
unquote come here to do stuff. So how do you
Hmm.
do it all? Start with Jake, executive director of Jake's Place. How do you start with that? How do you do it all? How do you do
Yes.
that?
So number one, the calendar is my best friend. I write everything down and things are color coded. I have notes and alarms and alerts set for everything. So that's
Organized.
that's
Okay.
yes. So that's really how I keep everything together. Thank goodness for calendars and the notes on your phone and all of that.
Absolutely.
But so with Bill Jake's Place, I started volunteering with them back in, I believe it was 2011 or
Okay.
2010. Um, and they're a nonprofit here in New Jersey where they build inclusive play experiences. So we build accessible playgrounds that have different features that allow people with different disabilities, whether you're using a wheelchair, crutches, a walker, um, or if there are other parts of the playground for the visually impaired, for those who have sensory processing disorders, if you're on the autism spectrum. It has so many features for all types of disabilities.
Wow.
And the main goal, the main mission of our nonprofit is that kids can play together, whether they have a disability or not.
Yes.
Because, like I use the term old school, the old school playgrounds either have mulch or gravel on them, which are not accessible for people with mobility devices and
Right.
wheelchairs. Yeah, so it's like I grew up in the 80s. There were always stones or wood chips on our
Mhm.
playgrounds. And not the easiest for me to get through when I was walking. I
Mhm.
stumbled and fell a few times, because I can't lift my legs up through it. It gets rough. So with Build Jake's Place, we help create accessible play spaces for everybody of every ability. And as I said,
Okay.
I started volunteering with them because I heard what they were doing, and it was right in,
Mhm.
a few towns over from me.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I have to meet these people, and I have to
Right.
find out what they're doing and how they're doing it, because it's amazing. And through their story, their son and grandson, he was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. His name is Jake, and
Okay.
sadly he passed away. But in
Mhm.
his memory, they wanted to do something to honor him, and they created Build Jake's Place, the nonprofit, and with the mission of creating a boundless playground in a nearby town near where Jake lived, because he loved playgrounds, but because of his disability, he could not get on the equipment. He couldn't enjoy the playgrounds like every other child, but he loved being near and on the playground.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so I volunteered with them for a few years, and then in October, actually, I can't believe it's October again, but in October of 2013, I was hired as their executive director.
Wow.
And yeah, so since then, we have fundraised to build a second playground here in New
Yay.
Jersey. Yes, so we have two playgrounds that are open, and then we have also had Jake's Law passed here in the state of New Jersey, which requires each of New Jersey's counties to have at least one inclusive playground.
Hmm.
So
I-
yeah, so we're really, we've really made some great changes in in the last 10 years that I've been involved with the organization. And also, a part of my job there is we run a Miracle League, which is a baseball league for children and adults who have disabilities. So we play every fall and spring season, and we didn't play last year because of the COVID situation. But
Okay.
we're back playing now. We have 2 more weeks left in this season, and then
Yay.
we'll play again in the spring. But children and adults of all ages, between the ages of 5 and I think our oldest player might be 60, they come out every
Wow.
Saturday and we play baseball, and we have volunteers. So again, going back to the Jake's Place model where we want everybody to play together,
Yes.
for our baseball league, we have children and adults who have disabilities, but we have volunteers that come out who don't have disabilities. So
Hmm.
it's helping everybody just
Right.
coexist. Yeah, it's helping everybody coexist and play together. And we have a lot of teenage volunteers who come out, so it's giving them a chance to learn about different types of
Mhm.
disabilities, and giving them an experience that they most likely would have not had, and
Yes.
if this did not exist.
I love that there's a space of people who had disabilities. It's like it's both. It's like it's both worlds. It's inclusive and it's accessible. So whether
Hmm.
you're disability or not, you can still use it. And one thing I find funny is that people who don't have disabilities, they love it's accessible for us. They love the letter stuff because it works for them too. So
It's
it's
so
honestly,
true.
it's
It,
honestly
it,
like, oh, it's so much here. I wish I had this. But I was like, you don't want this, but they want it though. It's like it's so funny to me. But they
it's
love
so true. It's
it.
the one thing I noticed about our playgrounds. We have ramps that go throughout
Yeah.
the whole play space.
Right.
Well, people have, because it inclines the ramp, they use it to teach their little, new babies how to walk. They're 1 or 2 year olds. They, and then once you see them the next year, they're like running up and down the ramp. So, like you said,
That's
everybody
it,
has access to this.
it benefits
Yeah.
everybody. So I love that.
Hmm.
It's so cool. We need to face it. We need one Missouri. We need one St. Louis like ASAP.
Hey, we can
Make
make it
some
happen.
make some calls.
Right.
Thank you. Make it happen. So where do you see Jake's Place 5 years from now?
5 years from now, that's a really great question.
New
So, um,
locations, new things, like new I don't want to exercise things, like new equipment. Would
yes.
you see?
So the good thing is, I mentioned we had Jake's Law passed. That was in 2018, I believe.
Okay, 4 years
And
ago.
before, yeah, so before everything had gotten shut down in 2020 because of the pandemic, we were working to build 7 new playgrounds with different
Wow.
townships. Yeah, so our organization is not actively fundraising to build new playgrounds, but we're collaborating with townships to build new playgrounds. Both of our playgrounds, which I forgot to mention, each of our playgrounds cost over $600,000 because of their size and because of the rubberized surfacing that is on them. That it's really expensive.
I'm sure.
So yeah, so we were working with 7 townships to build new playgrounds in the state of New Jersey, and just now we're hearing that a lot of the projects are getting back up and running. So hopefully this is the start. Having 7 new playgrounds now, and hopefully 5 years from now we can say we have another additional seven.
In other states, okay?
Yeah.
In other
Yes.
states.
Yes.
Statewide.
Yes. Countrywide. I'm all for it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's growing. It's growing. It's getting bigger. I can just see it. It's gonna do
It
great
is,
things.
and it's so important because a lot of people, when you hear the word playground, you think of children, but
Mm-hmm.
there are, like ourselves, there are adults with disabilities.
Yeah.
And going back to our previous conversation of making assumptions and stereotypes, adults with
Mm-hmm.
disabilities have children.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they have disabilities as well, and sometimes they don't. So a playground that is accessible allows these adults to go to a playground with their child.
Yes, it
and
do.
and then, yeah, so that's the part I think that I'd love to talk about, because people,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think they forget that
Right.
I don't have
Right.
children of my own, but
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who have kids, so it's easy to say, like, oh yeah, well, my son, he needs to get out of the house. Okay, well, let's meet at the playground, and I can
Yeah.
go meet them at the playground, and in my wheelchair or on my crutches.
And just as much fun as they are, we still be able to partake in the activity with them. So
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really I'm so honored and happy to be a part of this organization that's making a change here in New Jersey. And as you said, I'm hoping that, and I know there are other organizations in the country and around the world that are building inclusive playgrounds. So
mhm.
I just hope to be, a part of that whole mission and that
You
movement
are
of,
part of it. You are part of
yes,
it. You're making a splatter. You're making a splash. I love it. You,
yes,
you definitely
yes.
are. You definitely are. I love it. I love it. So let's dive into your OurView brand. Let's dive into that. What's that like being an entrepreneur and your brand? What is it about? What's the mission? Tell the
So
audience.
it's very interesting being an entrepreneur, and but I love it. I absolutely love it. So the OurView brand actually came from two situations. One was my nephew. He is now 20, which is shocking every time I say that. But he was 9 or 10 at the time, and I had picked him up from school, and his friends were kind of staring at me and laughing at me. And I forget if I was using my wheelchair or my crutches, but
Mhm.
I I was an adult. I was, what, 20 years old at the time, or 30 years old at the time. I didn't pay attention to it too much. It happens. There's nothing I can do about it, really. It's just,
Mhm.
I can just hope that their parents teach them that, what disabilities are, but there's nothing I can really do about it when it happens. But
Mhm.
my nephew saw it and he got very upset and offended by it.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was, well, there's nothing wrong with you. So
Mhm.
why were they laughing at you? Why were they pointing at you? And I said, well,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't understand. He said, well, you drive a car. And he starts telling me all the stuff that I do.
Yeah, I can do a lot. Wow, thank you
Yeah.
for reminding
He's
me.
like, you drive a car, you swim, you go on airplanes by yourself to travel, and
Wow.
you do this and you go fishing. And I said, but they don't know me. They don't know that I do that. I said, so when you go to school tomorrow, you have to tell them. Tell them who I was. Tell them that I picked you up and I drove you home and all of that kind of stuff. I said, because they don't know me. So they don't know why I have to use a wheelchair or crutches.
Yeah.
And after that moment, I started thinking, like, how can I change that? How can I get people, a larger audience of children, especially, to learn about disabilities? And
Mhm.
soon after that, I was out with a friend. We were attending a concert, and just realizing the inaccessibility of the New Jersey Transit trains here. Like, we were going up towards New York, and just realizing how inaccessible things were.
Mhm.
My friend and I started talking, and she said, she said, you have to do something so people can see your point of view. She said, and
Mhm.
not just your point of view, but other people who have disabilities. It can be like your view, but our view.
Mhm.
As people with disabilities, you can speak for the disability community and help people understand what it's like living with your disability.
Mhm.
So that's literally where the name Our View came from.
Wow.
talking,
Conversation.
yeah,
But that is
talking to her.
wow.
And the good thing is she still is actually a teacher. So she was actually the one that let me come into her classroom to speak.
That's
So,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, so that's where it all came from. And my mission is to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities.
Yeah.
Again, as we mentioned, the stereotypes, getting rid of the stereotypes and the assumptions that people have about people with disabilities, just helping the general public see in a more positive light those who live with disabilities. And although we have to do things differently, as you said, we bleed the same, we have hearts, we, we feel and experience things the same way that everybody else does. So I want to, I want to really help break those stereotypes down and, just help people see us as human beings and get to learn about different types of disabilities, because there are so many out there. And as you mentioned before too, there's so many reasons why people might use a wheelchair or use crutches or braces like I have. And so just making sure that the information is out there. And like, I can't tell you what it's like to have a hearing impairment or what it's like to have a vision impairment, to be blind or deaf, but I can tell you what my experience is like living with spina bifida. And you might meet or you will most likely meet 5 other people with spina bifida who their life is totally different than mine. There are some people with spina bifida who don't have to use braces or crutches or a wheelchair, and you would never know they have spina bifida, but they do, because it's different. Yeah, every diagnosis is different for every single person. So I think my big thing is to help make those changes and help people see things, help people see those with disabilities in a different, more positive way.
Absolutely, I love that. So, what products do you have at OurView? I think you got a hoodie
Okay.
though, but I don't think you have hoodies. I don't think you have hoodies. I think you have t-shirts. Yeah,
Yes.
you have t-shirts or just t-shirts, or what else do you have offer?
So I just have t-shirts for right now.
Which
They
is good enough.
Yes. Yes. So I think they're black and blue and purple. I have three style t-shirts, and also I have tank tops too, but it's going to be winter soon. Um, but yes, this we were talking about my sweatshirt here, and this was I love wearing it, but at the same time I don't, because everybody's like, oh, I want one of those, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of a one of a kind.
Custom made, custom made.
Right. But I do have just I do have gray sweatshirts that are, that can be purchased, available through my website. If you reach out to me, I can make sure that I get I can get them.
Definitely will.
Yes.
You will. So you also have an OurView podcast. So how is
Yes.
that going?
It's going very well, extremely well. So
Mhm.
before the pandemic, as I mentioned with OurView, my primary goal, not my only goal, but a primary goal of creating OurView was to educate children about disabilities, because I feel like that's where it starts. Like we learn in school from the earliest, preschool and kindergarten. That's where we learn things. That's how we learn how to interact with other people and sharing and all of those things in school. So I felt it was very important that I start there. And when the pandemic hit in, I guess, February or March,
Yeah, March.
uh, yeah, I couldn't go to schools anymore, because our schools here in New Jersey, they all went to virtual learning within, I think, like a week or two period. And I had 3 scheduled assemblies to go to for the end of that school year, but I couldn't do it anymore. So I said, how can I get my message out to the public? How can I do it? I didn't know at first myself how to do a podcast, but I knew I had a computer with a camera, and I knew I had a microphone, and I was like, okay, I'll do a podcast. What the podcast would look like, I didn't know at that time, but I did. I think the first episode I did was in June of 2020, and it was just me talking about my disability and living with spina bifida and life and just different things. And then I had my friend Lindsay, who I was talking about, who helped me create OurView, and we shared our story. She's another lifelong friend that I've known since I was in 9th grade. so I had her on, and then I just started having different people on, and it's already been a year. I put out my 59th episode this morning. Yeah, so it's really crazy how my original plan was I'm putting out 2 episodes a month. I said I didn't want to overdo it. I didn't want to put any extra pressure on myself or anything like that. Because I said I don't really know what I'm doing. So like if I do 2 episodes a month and I miss a week or two, like it'll be okay because nobody, would really expect it. But what happened was I got connected to a lot of people with disabilities through Clubhouse, the
Yeah,
app. Yes.
I love
So
Clubhouse. I
yes.
love
So
Clubhouse.
there's a very large disability community on
Oh,
Clubhouse, or there
yes,
was
it
at the
is.
time. Yes.
It still is. It still is.
Yeah. And so I just kept connecting with people. I kept saying, I have a podcast. Would you be a guest? And
Hmm.
the way it happened was they were sure I can be a guest, or and this would be it's Monday today, so they would say like, oh, are you free tomorrow to record? And I'm like, sure. And
Yeah,
somebody else would say,
okay.
right. So somebody else would say like, well, are you free on Thursday to record? So next thing I knew, I'm recording 3 or 4 episodes every week.
I
one
love
week
that.
one week I did 11, which I'll never do again. I had no voice at the end of the week. But
Wow.
so my twice a month podcast turned into, well, I can't have 20 episodes sitting and waiting for just twice a month. I have to start putting them out every week.
Yeah.
And I was able to keep up a schedule, much less than 11 episodes, recording 11 episodes in 1 week. I was able to keep up a schedule enough where I could put out episodes every week. So that's how I got to almost 60 episodes in
Wow.
just over a year. Yeah.
Wow. Because I'm on season 2 myself.
Hmm.
And I've been doing this since like, I think, like you 2020. With me, well, I was talking to schools too as well, sharing my story and talking about, being in the wheelchair, things like that. And it's like you said, it stopped a lot of things. COVID stopped a lot of stuff. And so, that's not where mine started because I was thinking like doing like YouTube videos initially, like sharing my
Hmm.
story and talking about different topics. And then God said, how about you elevate that and start interviewing other survivors? I'm more than just in the wheelchair. I'm also a brain survivor. And so I'm like, okay. And so I started, me girl had an idea. And so we were interviewing each other initially. And then it just branched out from there. And then I started meeting more different people. And I think I had 20 some people the first season, it's 21, 22. And this season, this year alone, is double that. Like I had to stop, I had to stop my scheduling because it was I did literally like maybe like 3 episodes in 1 week. And I don't know like that. Normally
Wow.
it's every Friday, but then it just got out of hand. Like
Hmm.
it blew my mind. Like it just really was like overwhelming to a certain extent. And so, but I do it normally every Friday. And of course,
Hmm.
I pick up hiccups here and there, but for the most part, it's been consistent every Friday. Now, in the event that I can't do it Friday, I'll maneuver and adjust to the schedule because I'm very flexible that way. But it's Fridays have been working for me for the past like I said, 2 years now. So,
Right.
and I'm really finished. I have maybe about 7, 8 interviews left, maybe. And so it's like mine now, but I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing people share their experiences, things like that. We're also different. We're the same, but yet different. And I
Hmm.
love stories. I'm a storyteller, so I love stories. I'm a writer. I just love hearing stories, and it just keeps me going and just encourages me even more. Hearing other people's stories, and it builds me up. So if you can do it, I can do it too. So it gives me extra
Yep.
encouragement as well. So I love
Yeah.
that. So is that rewarding for you as well? Like hearing people's stories and things like that, it builds you up too. Is that the same experience?
Yes, absolutely. That is, and for me, I love sharing my story because I don't know
Mhm.
who my story might touch
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
inspire. And I know that's a big conversation within the disability community of if we are inspirations or not. And some
Yeah.
people don't like being called an inspiration. I personally don't mind because I don't know who, yeah, I don't know who my story might touch. And I don't know what, the person I share my story with out, at the grocery store or at a Target, I don't know what they might be going through. And if they hear my story or see me, they might be able to say, like, okay, I can get through this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're
So
each other.
yeah, and that is so true. And hearing other people's stories, and not just, for me, it's not even just other people with disabilities. I know some, yeah, I know some parents, people that are just, really kicking butt at life, and they're doing a great job raising their kids. Like, that is, they're raising great human beings, and it's, that's inspiring to me because it gives me hope for our future and saying, like, okay, I know, at least I know these handful of kids who I know will be out there changing the world and doing positive things and treating people right. And uh, I have friends who are white and their kids call me uncle. And so it's just like they will be okay with people who are different than them, because in reality, it's like I couldn't be more different than them. If they're white and blonde hair, blue eyes, I'm black and I use crutches and a wheelchair, I have a disability, and that doesn't matter to them. So it's just, like I said, hearing stories of whoever it is, and people that are just doing positive things, and being good to other people and being kind to other people
It's
is,
encouraging.
yeah, definitely builds me up and inspires me for sure.
I love that. So I stalked your IG page. Yes, I stalked it. Man, I
Uh-oh.
saw. No, it's good. It's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So I saw a video. We have
Uh-huh.
lots of videos. First of all, so I saw a video. You were talking about Miss Emmy. Who's Miss Emmy? I know who she is. Who is she to the people who don't know who she is? Who
Oh,
is Miss?
Miss Emmy, I'm so glad you saw that video. So I brought it up on, a episode of my podcast recently about Miss Emmy. She is, she's an older woman who attended my church, a family friend. I'm not sure if I was really related to her. But as I got older, I called her Aunt Emmy, and yeah, you know how we do. It's just what we do. We call people right.
Who is it?
Yes. So she was really, just one of, like I said, one of the older people in the church. She was in her 90s when she passed away.
Wow.
Um, so as a child, I knew who she was, of course, and again, as I got older, I developed my own, friendship with her, and I attended her house, pretty much, I guess, for a few years. She held a weekly, prayer meeting,
Mm-hmm.
uh, at her house, and between her and another, woman in town. And I just remember, like, sitting with them and just listening to them and hearing them pray, and all of that kind of stuff. And for me, like I said, it wasn't often that I felt this way, but there were
Mm-hmm.
times, as most people with any disability or not can say, it was just kind of like, why is this happening to me? And
Mm-hmm.
it was always,
I don't know. Arthur, are you there? Oh. Oh. Hey back guys, just 1 second. You are back. It's gonna come back in. I guess something happened with his internet probably. The weather wasn't I think it might be around where he's at, so come back 1 second. Hopefully he will be. I get space to come back. But thank you for sticking around for the episode. I appreciate it. It's just so lightning. He knows come back. Mhm. Here he goes.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, what in the world happened?
I'm like, what?
Oh, technology.
What? Gotta love technology, right?
Oh gosh.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
All right.
You're saying that you're having the meetings and the
Yes. Yeah, so we would have a weekly prayer meeting, and I can remember feeling at times as a teenager of why me, why did I have to have a disability, and nobody else in my family has a disability, so like they don't know what causes spina bifida, they don't know how to cure it, they don't know where it comes from, but and she just said to me one day, she said, "Well, why not you?" I was like, "What do you mean?" What do you mean, why not me? I'm like, I want to know why me though. Why was I the one chosen? She goes, yeah, why not you? And she said, why can't you be the one that is used to show that, yeah, you have a disability, but you still do things, that
Yes.
you still live life, that you still have a good life and you have a good support system. And she just said all of these like positive things to me. And I was just like,
Yeah, why
oh,
not?
right. Yeah, I was like, maybe you are right. Why not me? Like, yeah, maybe I can. And the one thing she shared too was for scriptures to put my name into the scripture, like the I am fearfully and wonderfully made scripture.
Absolutely.
So to say, I, Arthur, am fearfully and wonderfully made. That
Yes.
when I tell you that whole conversation with her changed my whole way of
Yes.
thinking about everything. It just really did. And as I said, I brought that story up on my podcast a few weeks ago, I think, and it was just like I hadn't thought about it in years, but something in that conversation made me think of it, and I was like, yeah, like so this is that was I was a teenager, so it was like this. What I'm doing now is really a direct relation to that conversation. I didn't know it at that time, but now I can say like yeah, she really did put that,
Yes.
spark inside of me.
And God uses people that way too. He uses people to ignite something inside of us to say, "Hey, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait. I need you to do this thing." So, in order for you, I said this before. I just did a healing and motivational summit, and healing and motivation summit. And so I mentioned that I said something along the lines of people are waiting for you to do what you're called to do because then it frees them to do what they're called to do.
Hmm.
So people are waiting on you to do what you're called to do, so they can do what they're called to do. So by Miss Emmy being her rightful place to get to you, get through to you, she's able to help you reach your position that you're now, which is a
Hmm.
wonderful position. So she had to be free to do what she wanted to do what she's called to do, or to help you do what you're called to do.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just responsibilities of that is to get to keep on giving. It's gonna keep on giving,
Yes.
keep on giving. And that's what life is all about. We gotta help each other, inspire one another, encourage one another. That's what life is all about. So I'm glad she was there for you as your inspiration to motivate you to be a world changer. We're all world changers in our own right.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
we're here for a purpose. We're here for a purpose because you gotta find out what that is and fulfill it.
Absolutely.
Responsibilities. So yeah, I love that story. It's such a beautiful story. I love it.
Yeah. I'm glad you saw it. I'm really happy you saw that.
I'm glad I did too. I'm glad I did too. So, were there any other things you want to accomplish? Any other goals you have for yourself, or what's next for you?
Oh wow, what's next for me? That's a great
Another
question.
question, right? Another question.
Yes, that's a great question. Again, back to the stories. I love sharing my story and um I'm currently trying to figure out the best way to do that
Mm-hmm.
with with technology now. It's the
Mm-hmm.
possibilities are literally endless.
Sure.
So I'm figuring out what's the best way, and that could be multiple ways of sharing my story, whether it be through uh, YouTube videos or books or
Yeah,
what however.
I'll be above. Why not? Why
Yes,
not?
yeah. So it's it can be like I said, with technology these days, you can do multiple things and so many things, and sharing my story in, I think in different, for different age levels, for different age groups, I think is so important, because I can remember being that, second grader or third grader, just as well as I can remember being that middle school and high school student and
Mhm.
that young adult going into college. And
Absolutely.
then being now the, not old adult, but older adult. I'll be 40. So I can remember, recently, situations and things that have happened. So I think, sharing different experiences for those different, age groups and age levels, I think is going to be, uh, the, I guess I won't say challenge. It'll be the interesting thing to figure out how to best do that.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely going to make that happen.
I think it's wonderful. And I think one thing you can talk about, if you haven't already had this idea already, um, talking about how it was for you growing up with other kids. They said, I'm not saying necessarily like teasing you because you say you weren't teased necessarily, but just how it is, like growing up a person with having to use a wheelchair or whatever case may be. Just sharing that side of it, just so they can get an understanding of, it's not nice to teach these people that's are different from you. So don't tease others
Mhm.
if they're different from you. Just embrace them and ask them, hey, what happened to you? Why are you, what experience in your life that what experience happened that you had to be in a situation or whatever. Get to know a person and not just assume or stare or make fun of the person, just get to know a person, just understand their, situation. So versus doing this. So something like around that area, whatever. I
Yeah.
suggest. But that's so cool though. So what advice would you to get someone who's in your situation that want to be an entrepreneur, but like I'm in a wheelchair, so how can I be an entrepreneur? What advice would you tell them?
I would say to really find something, um, which can be difficult now, but try to find something that's not already being done.
Hmm.
Because if, if it's already being done 10 times, it's going to be more difficult for you to create something that is, unique, that's not already being done. It's not impossible. For me, I think what really helped me was, at the time, I did not see many men of color
Hmm.
doing disability awareness work. I'm not saying they weren't out there. I'm not saying they didn't exist. I know there are many that do
Hmm.
exist. I've met a few of them, on my podcast in the last year or so. Um, you know, but for me, it was like, that was my thing. I can tell you, I wanted to share my experience of being an African American male with a disability, and, um, it, so it was really, for me, it was easy because I was telling my own story. That was number one. And then I didn't see anybody else who looked like me doing this. So, and especially like in my area, I knew there weren't, I knew that the students weren't learning about disabilities in schools, from my friends who were teachers and from, my friends who have kids. They didn't know. And without me teaching them, telling them, their children, they didn't know what spina bifida was, or any other type of disability, or why people would use wheelchairs. So
Hmm.
I think that's a big thing, for anybody who's looking to start their own business, is to, come up with a unique idea, that also at the same time meets a need for the community, for
Yeah.
whatever, yeah, for whatever community that is you're trying to reach. Um, because it has to, it's helpful if you have, uh, a mission, or, some type of service or product that is meeting a need that is not, already being met. So
Yes.
that, I think that's the best advice that I could really, give out
And
to anybody.
I would agree with that. We're all different now. We all bring something to the table. We all got
Hmm.
a different way of doing something. Just like ketchup. There's so many different ketchups. I love barbecue. I'm a barbecue sauce girl myself. I love barbecue sauces. Like there's Applebee's barbecue. Well, I'm serious. The Applebee's barbecue sauce. There's McDonald's barbecue sauce. There's Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce, which is amazing. It's just the barbecue sauces. Yeah, they're
Yes.
all good. They're all good, right?
Yes.
You got your own barbecue sauce. You just make it different. That's That's I got. That's I got. We're all different. We're all the same, but yet different. So find what makes you shine. You know, little different from other people. So we all can bring something to the table. We all have something to add to the table. We all can bring something different on. You know, but I'm big on prayer and letting God lead you to whatever you have, you know, whatever He calls you to. Go out for a
Mhm.
purpose. It's only something you can do that I can't. I can't do what you. I can do what you can do. You can do what I can do. So it's kind of like we all have our thing, our people that we're supposed to reach. So find out what that thing is that only you can reach people knowing what you do or called to do, and then find out what that is. And yeah, you better off. But yeah, we're all different work besides to catch up and all kind of things. So we're all different world, whole different world together.
Yes.
You're so funny about that. You're so weird. So how can people follow you and get your T-shirt and things like that, your merchandise, whatever you have on your site? How can they find you and follow you?
Okay, so all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the places. I can be found at OurView for Life, OurView, the number 4LIFE. And my website is ourview.com. So it's our-view.com. That's where you can see the t-shirts that I have available, the tank tops I have available. And then there's also a feature where you can contact me through the website if you do want a sweatshirt. I just have them in gray.
I like
But
great.
yeah. So it's but the t-shirts I have, they have the Our View logo on them, and they come in blue, black, or purple. And then I also have another, it's like an orange color shirt, and it has 3 cartoon images of myself. One is just my face, one is me standing with my crutches, and the other is me sitting in a wheelchair, and it has the Our View logo on it
I
as
love
well.
that. I love
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
also, it's Bill Jake's
yes.
place. Is that what?
Yes, and if you want more information about Build Jake's Place and the great things that we're doing, the website is buildjakesplace.org, and you can also find information about our Miracle League there as well. And yeah, so I'm doing, like you said, I am doing a lot, and as I said, I keep it all straight with my calendars and stuff.
Mhm.
But it's all important work, and the work that you're doing by having this platform to have people on to share their stories and the great things that they're doing is so important and so needed. So thank you for this opportunity and for the work that you're doing, because it really this is how we change the tone of conversation. We have conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it's
Gotta talk
it's
about it.
that simple. We can't change things we don't talk about. So
Right. That's right. You gotta talk about it. Hold on with me 1 second. Stay with me 1 second. But
okay.
thank y'all for but yeah, like you said, y'all follow him on IG at Arthur follow Arthur on IG and Facebook and all social media platforms. IG, Facebook. Are you on YouTube as well?
Yes.
YouTube,
Hmm.
our view 4 for life. And also visit our view r-view.com to get a t-shirt to support any of the things he has as well. And also, you want to stay tuned in with the accessible playground. If you want to get more information on playground in your area, I'm sure they have resources or whatever. You can contact your, I guess, state official, somebody to get a
Yes.
accessible playground in your area, your state. So go visit buildjakesplace.org. And yeah, thank you all for your time. And thank you all for tuning in. See you next week, guys. Next Friday. See you guys.
Yeah.
We're going to
Thank
be on
you.
See you later.